a soothing adaptation of the Jungle Book. The Secret of the Red Flower. The jungle was alive with its usual symphony of sounds. Birds calling from the treetops, insects humming in the undergrowth, and the soft rustle of leaves as a gentle breeze swept through. Yet amidst this harmony, something unusual caught Mowgli's attention. A strange glow flickered in the distance, casting an eerie orange hue against the darkening sky. Mowgli stood still, his curiosity piqued. He had never seen anything like it before. The glow seemed to move, alive and unpredictable, like a living creature with a will of its own. He took a cautious step forward, his eyes wide with wonder and uncertainty. "What is that?" he whispered to himself, his voice barely audible over the jungle's sounds. The glow was mesmerizing, its colors shifting between deep orange, fiery red, and bright yellow. It seemed almost magical, yet there was something unsettling about it, a raw, untamed energy that sent a shiver down his spine. As he crept closer, the air around him grew warmer, and a faint crackling sound reached his ears. The glow was brighter now, dancing wildly like a spirit in the night. Mowgli's heart raced, torn between his desire to see more and an instinctive caution that urged him to turn back. From his perch on a nearby branch, Bagheera's golden eyes caught the flickering light. The panther had been watching Mowgli closely, his sharp instincts sensing the boy's growing fascination. With a quiet leap, he landed silently beside him. "Do you know what that is, man-cub?" Bagheera asked, his deep voice calm but firm. Mowgli shook his head, his gaze still fixed on the distant glow. "I don't know. It looks alive, like it's dancing, but it feels strange, like it could hurt." Bagheera nodded slowly, his expression serious. "That, Mowgli, is the red flower. Fire. It is both beautiful and dangerous, a force unlike anything else in the jungle. It can give life, but it can also destroy." "Fire?" Mowgli repeated, tasting the word. It sounded powerful, almost sacred. "Why have I never seen it before?" "Because the jungle fears it," Bagheera replied. "We animals avoid it, for it is not ours to control. Only man can summon the red flower, and they do so with great care or great recklessness." Mowgli frowned, his curiosity deepening. "But why does it move like that? And why is it so bright?" Bagheera's gaze shifted toward the flickering light. "Fire is alive in its own way," he said. "It feeds on the wood and leaves, growing stronger with every breath of wind. But it has no mind, no sense of balance. It consumes everything in its path until there is nothing left." Mowgli took another step forward, but Bagheera's paw stopped him. "No closer, man-cub," the panther warned. "Even from a distance, fire can be dangerous. Its heat can burn, its smoke can choke. It is not something to approach lightly." The boy hesitated, torn between his awe and the panther's warning. He could feel the warmth on his skin, even from afar. The light was dazzling, casting long shadows that seemed to dance with the flames. Yet there was an edge to it, a sense of unpredictability that made his stomach churn. "Why would anyone make something so dangerous?" Mowgli asked, his voice tinged with confusion. Bagheera sighed, his tone softening. "Because fire is power, Mowgli. It can bring warmth on cold nights, cook food, and keep predators at bay. But power, when misused, can become destructive. That is why fire is both revered and feared." Mowgli nodded slowly, the weight of Bagheera's words sinking in. He couldn't take his eyes off the flames, but now he saw them differently. They weren't just beautiful. They were alive, consuming everything they touched. The idea both fascinated and frightened him. "Will it come here?" Mowgli asked, glancing nervously at the jungle around him. "Not tonight," Bagheera reassured him. "The fire you see is small, likely made by men who will tend to it. But remember this, Mowgli. The jungle is vulnerable to fire's power. A single spark can destroy everything you see." Mowgli's gaze returned to the distant glow. The thought of the jungle, his home, being consumed by such a force sent a chill through him. For the first time, he understood why the animals spoke of the red flower with such fear. "Come," Bagheera said, his tone gentle but insistent. "You have seen enough for tonight. Fire is not something to dwell on without understanding its nature. In time, you will learn more, but for now, respect its power." Reluctantly, Mowgli turned away, the flickering light still etched in his mind. As they walked back into the shadows of the jungle, he couldn't shake the feeling that he had encountered something far greater than himself, a force that demanded both awe and caution. The night was quiet again, the sounds of the jungle returning as they moved farther from the fire. But for Mowgli, the memory of the red flower lingered. It was more than just a light. It was a lesson, a reminder of the delicate balance between power and responsibility. As he lay beneath the canopy of stars that night, Mowgli's thoughts were filled with questions. What did it mean to control something so powerful? Could he ever understand it? And most importantly, how could he protect the jungle from it? For now, he had no answers, only a sense of wonder and a faint tinge of fear. But deep within, he knew that the red flower was a mystery he would one day have to face. The moon hung high in the sky, casting a silvery glow over the jungle, as Bagheera and Mowgli made their way back from the clearing where they had glimpsed the red flower. The boy's steps were slower than usual, his mind still lingering on the flickering flames he had seen from afar. There was something about fire, its beauty, its wildness, that both captivated and unsettled him. "Bagheera," Mowgli said, breaking the silence, "why do you fear the red flower so much? You're not afraid of anything else in the jungle." Bagheera stopped, his golden eyes catching the moonlight as he turned to face the boy. "Because fire, Mowgli, is a force unlike any other. It does not have claws or teeth, but it can kill more swiftly and completely than any predator." Mowgli frowned, his curiosity deepening. "But you said fire can also be useful. How can something so dangerous be good?" Bagheera sighed, his expression somber. "That is the paradox of the red flower, man-cub. It can give life, but it can also destroy it. And the line between the two is finer than you can imagine." They reached a large rock bathed in moonlight, and Bagheera gestured for Mowgli to sit. The panther settled beside him, his tail curling around his paws as he began to speak. "Long ago," Bagheera said, his voice low and measured, "there was a great drought in the jungle. The rivers dried up, and the animals grew weak from thirst and hunger. In their desperation, they turned to the red flower for warmth and sustenance." Mowgli leaned forward, his eyes wide. "Did it help them?" "At first, yes," Bagheera replied. The fire brought warmth on cold nights and cooked food when the animals could find nothing else. But soon, the red flower grew greedy. It fed on the jungle, spreading from tree to tree, devouring everything in its path. The animals who had once welcomed its warmth were now running from its flames. "What happened?" Mowgli asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "The rains came, just in time," Bagheera said. "The jungle was saved, but it bore scars that would never heal, and the animals learned a hard lesson. The red flower is not a friend to be trusted. It is a force to be respected and feared." Mowgli was silent, imagining the devastation Bagheera described. The thought of the jungle he loved being consumed by fire sent a chill through him. "But if the rains hadn't come," he began, unable to finish the sentence. "If the rains hadn't come," Bagheera said grimly, "there would be no jungle left." The panther's gaze softened as he looked at Mowgli. "Do you understand now, man-cub, why we fear the red flower? It does not discriminate. It consumes everything, leaving only ash in its wake." Mowgli nodded slowly. "But you said only man can control fire. Does that mean I can?" Bagheera's ears twitched, and he regarded Mowgli with a piercing look. "Control is a dangerous word, Mowgli. Man can summon fire, yes, but to truly control it, that is something no one can do. Fire has a will of its own. It obeys only as long as it is fed and contained. The moment it escapes, it becomes a destroyer." Mowgli shivered, not from the cold, but from the weight of Bagheera's words. "So why do men use it at all?" "Because it gives them power," Bagheera said simply. "Fire sets man apart from the jungle. It allows them to shape their surroundings, to protect themselves, to dominate. But power without understanding is dangerous. Many men have learned that too late." Bagheera's tone grew heavier as he continued. "I have seen villages burn to the ground because someone let the red flower grow beyond their control. I have seen animals flee in terror as their homes were turned to ash. Fire does not care whether you are friend or foe. It takes everything." Mowgli's fists clenched at his sides. The more he learned about fire, the more conflicted he felt. How could something so beautiful be so destructive? And what did it mean for him, a man-cub, to live in a jungle where fire was feared? Sensing the boy's unease, Bagheera placed a gentle paw on his shoulder. "Do not let fear rule you, man-cub," he said softly. "Fear is a teacher, not a master. Learn from it. Understand fire's power, and you will know how to respect it." Mowgli nodded, his gaze fixed on the ground. "What should I do if I ever see fire again?" "Stay away from it," Bagheera said firmly. "Do not let its beauty tempt you, and if you must use it, do so with great care. Fire is a tool, not a toy. Treat it with respect, and it will serve you. Take it lightly, and it will destroy you." The jungle around them was quiet, the usual nighttime symphony replaced by a solemn stillness. Mowgli felt the weight of responsibility settling on his young shoulders. The red flower was not just a force to be feared. It was a test, a challenge he would one day have to face. As they rose to continue their journey, Mowgli cast one last glance toward the distant clearing where the fire had burned. Its light was gone now, but its memory lingered, etched in his mind like a cautionary tale. "Thank you, Bagheera," he said softly, "for telling me. Bagheera gave a slight nod, his golden eyes reflecting the moonlight. Remember, Mowgli, knowledge is your greatest ally. Understand the jungle, and you will find your place in it. But always be mindful of its dangers. Respect is the key to survival. Together, they vanished into the shadows, leaving the lessons of the red flower behind, for now. But Mowgli knew he would carry them with him always, a reminder of the delicate balance between power and responsibility. The jungle was unusually dry. Weeks without rain had turned the lush greenery brittle, and the air carried a sharp, acrid scent of decay. Mowgli followed Bagheera along a narrow trail, their path winding through clusters of parched trees and brown, crackling grass. The boy's curiosity about the red flower had only deepened after Bagheera's warnings, but today he would witness its destructive power firsthand. The first sign of trouble came as a faint wisp of smoke, curling lazily into the sky like a signal. Bagheera stopped abruptly, his ears twitching and his golden eyes narrowing. "Do you smell that, man-cub?" he asked, his voice low but urgent. Mowgli sniffed the air and frowned. "It smells sharp, like something burning." "That's because it is," Bagheera replied, his tone grim. "Stay close to me. We must see how far it has spread." They moved cautiously, the scent of smoke growing stronger with each step. Soon, they reached a small clearing where the source of the smell became visible. A patch of dry grass had caught fire, its edges flickering with angry orange flames. The fire crackled and hissed, consuming everything in its path. Mowgli froze, his heart pounding. The flames were smaller than what he had imagined, but their intensity was undeniable. The air around them was thick with heat, and the once familiar jungle seemed alien and hostile under the fire's glow. "Is this the red flower?" Mowgli asked, his voice tinged with both awe and fear. "Yes," Bagheera said, his gaze fixed on the flames. "This is what happens when the red flower is left unchecked. It grows, consuming everything, and leaves nothing but ash." The fire crept forward, its tongues licking hungrily at the dry undergrowth. Small bushes caught alight, their leaves shriveling and turning to ash in seconds. The crackling grew louder, punctuated by the occasional snap of a branch giving way. Mowgli took a step closer, but Bagheera's paw shot out, stopping him. "Do not go near it, man-cub," he warned. "Even a small fire can turn deadly in an instant." As they watched, the fire spread to a nearby tree. Its bark blackened and split, and the leaves above burst into flames, creating a canopy of fire. Mowgli's eyes widened in horror as the once majestic tree became a pillar of smoke and embers. "How does it spread so fast?" Mowgli asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Because the jungle is dry," Bagheera explained. "When the air is parched, everything becomes fuel for the fire. A single spark can grow into an inferno." Mowgli turned to Bagheera, a mixture of fear and confusion in his eyes. Why didn't the animals stop it? Can't they do something? Bagheera's gaze softened, though his voice remained firm. "Fire is not something we can fight, Mowgli. We must either flee or wait for the rains to come. It is a force beyond our control." As if to emphasize his point, a gust of wind swept through the clearing, feeding the flames and pushing them toward another patch of dry grass. The fire leapt forward, devouring everything in its path with terrifying speed. a family of rabbits darted from their burrow, their small forms barely visible as they fled the encroaching flames. Mowgli's stomach twisted as he watched the rabbits disappear into the underbrush. "This is horrible," he said, his voice trembling. "Why would anyone start a fire?" Bagheera's expression darkened. "Sometimes it is carelessness, a spark left unattended, a campfire not properly extinguished. Other times, it is deliberate. Some men use fire as a weapon, not caring about the destruction they leave behind." Mowgli clenched his fists, anger and helplessness welling up inside him. He couldn't understand why anyone would unleash such devastation. The jungle, his home, was alive and beautiful, and now it was being consumed by something senseless and cruel. "Can we do anything?" he asked, desperation creeping into his voice. "Not now," Bagheera said, his tone heavy with resignation. "This fire is small, but it will burn until it exhausts itself or the rains come. All we can do is stay out of its path." They moved to a higher vantage point where they could see the extent of the fire. From above, the flames looked even more menacing. A writhing sea of orange and black that crept steadily through the undergrowth. Smoke rose in thick columns, blotting out the sky and making it hard to breathe. Mowgli covered his nose and mouth with his hand, his eyes stinging from the smoke. "Will the jungle recover?" he asked, his voice muffled. "In time," Bagheera replied. "The jungle is resilient, but it will bear the scars of this fire for many years. Some trees will grow back, but others are lost forever." The boy nodded, a heavy feeling settling in his chest. He thought about the animals he had seen fleeing, the homes that had been destroyed, and the lifeless ash that would remain when the fire was finally gone. For the first time, he truly understood what Bagheera had meant when he said that fire was a force to be respected and feared. As they descended from the vantage point, the fire continued to rage below. Mowgli felt a deep sense of responsibility settle over him. He was a man cub, and Bagheera had said that only man could summon the red flower. That meant he had a choice, a responsibility to use his knowledge wisely. "Bagheera," Mowgli said, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside him. "I promise, I'll never use fire to hurt the jungle. I'll respect it, like you said." Bagheera looked at him, a hint of pride in his golden eyes. "Good," he said simply. "The jungle does not fear fire because it exists, Mowgli. It fears fire because it does not understand control. If you can learn to control it, to use it responsibly, you will protect more than just yourself." They walked away from the wildfire, leaving its crackling and smoke behind. The jungle ahead was still green and alive, a stark contrast to the devastation they had just witnessed. Mowgli felt a renewed sense of purpose as he followed Bagheera, his steps more deliberate than before. As night fell, the distant glow of the fire lingered on the horizon, a haunting reminder of the power it wielded. But for Mowgli, it was also a lesson in responsibility, in the delicate balance between power and destruction, and in his own role within the jungle. The jungle was quiet again. The distant glow of the wildfire had faded, leaving behind only the faint smell of smoke lingering in the air. Mowgli sat on a fallen log near the edge of a small stream, his bare feet submerged in the cool water. The gentle current soothed him, but his mind was far from calm. The events of the day, the crackling flames, the fleeing animals, and the destruction they had witnessed played over and over in his head. He stared at his reflection in the rippling water, his young face distorted by the movement of the stream. For the first time, he didn't feel like just a boy living in the jungle. He felt like something more and something less. The power of the red flower, the warnings from Bagheera, and the destruction they had seen weighed heavily on him. Bagheera's words echoed in his mind. Only man can summon the red flower. Mowgli picked up a small pebble and rolled it between his fingers. If only man can summon it, he thought. Does that make me dangerous? Am I different from the jungle because of what I am? He threw the pebble into the stream, watching as the ripples spread outward. It reminded him of the fire, how it spread so quickly, consuming everything in its path. A single spark had started that fire, and it had turned an entire stretch of jungle into ash. Could he, too, cause such destruction with a careless act? Why does man need fire at all? Mowgli wondered aloud. His voice was soft, but the question carried a weight he couldn't ignore. He thought of the animals he had seen running from the flames, the rabbits darting into the underbrush, the birds flying desperately to escape the smoke. The jungle was their home, just as it was his. How could he ever be part of it if he carried the potential to destroy it? As if sensing his turmoil, Bagheera appeared silently from the shadows. The panther moved with his usual grace, his golden eyes calm and watchful. He approached Mowgli and sat beside him, his sleek black form blending with the night. "You're troubled, man-cub," Bagheera said, his voice steady but kind. "What is on your mind?" Mowgli hesitated before speaking. "The fire," he said finally. "I can't stop thinking about it. You said only man can summon it. Does that make me dangerous to the jungle?" Bagheera regarded Mowgli thoughtfully. "It is true that man has the power to summon the red flower," he said. "But power, Mowgli, is not what makes someone dangerous. It is how they choose to use it." Mowgli looked up at Bagheera, his expression a mix of confusion and hope. "But what if I don't know how to use it? What if I make a mistake and hurt the jungle?" Bagheera's gaze softened. "Mistakes are a part of learning, man-cub. But what matters is your intent and your awareness. You have seen what fire can do when it is left unchecked. You have witnessed its power, both beautiful and destructive. That knowledge is your greatest strength." Mowgli nodded slowly, his thoughts shifting. He remembered how the flames had moved, wild, untamed, and unstoppable. But he also remembered Bagheera's calm presence, the way the panther had guided him away from danger without panic or haste. "Is that why you're so calm, Bagheera?" Mowgli asked. "Because you know how to control your strength?" Bagheera's lips curved into a faint smile. "Control is not about suppressing your strength, Mowgli. It is about knowing when and how to use it. The jungle is full of power, whether it is in the teeth of a tiger, the poison of a snake, or the strength of the red flower. But the greatest power lies in restraint." Mowgli let Bagheera's words sink in. He thought about the wildfire and how it had spread, because there was nothing to stop it. The flames had no understanding, no balance. They had only hunger. Perhaps that was the difference between strength and destruction. The ability to choose when to act and when to hold back. "But how do I learn that?" Mowgli asked. How do I know when to use my strength and when to hold back? Bagheera placed a paw on Mowgli's shoulder, his touch firm but reassuring. By observing, by listening, and by understanding, he said. The jungle is your teacher, man-cub. Every creature here knows its place, its role. The birds do not try to rule the trees, and the rivers do not try to consume the land. They exist in balance. If you understand that balance, you will know your place as well. Mowgli turned his gaze back to the stream, watching as its gentle flow carried away the ripples he had made earlier. He thought about the balance Bagheera spoke of, how the jungle thrived because everything played its part. Fire, too, had its place, providing warmth, light, and protection. But when used carelessly, it upset the balance, turning life into ash. I think I understand, Mowgli said after a long pause. It's not about being strong or weak. It's about knowing when to use your strength and when to let things be. Bagheera nodded, his golden eyes gleaming with approval. Exactly, man-cub. Strength is not in your ability to dominate, but in your ability to coexist. The jungle is not something to be conquered. It is something to be respected. The two sat in silence for a while, the sounds of the jungle wrapping around them like a soothing melody. Mowgli felt a sense of clarity he hadn't experienced before. The fire, though terrifying, had taught him an important lesson. Not just about power, but about himself. As the first light of dawn began to break through the trees, Mowgli rose to his feet. He looked at Bagheera, his posture more confident, his expression calm. Thank you, Bagheera, he said. I'll remember this. I'll remember that strength isn't just about power, it's about responsibility. Bagheera rose as well, his sleek form stretching gracefully. You are learning, man-cub, he said, and with every lesson, you grow stronger, not just in body, but in spirit. That is the true strength of the jungle. As they walked back into the heart of the jungle, Mowgli felt lighter, yet stronger. He knew there was much more to learn, but he also knew he wasn't alone. The jungle was his home, his teacher, and his guide. And with Bagheera by his side, he was ready to embrace whatever lessons lay ahead. The first rays of dawn painted the jungle in shades of gold and amber. The air was cool, carrying the faint scent of earth and leaves washed clean by the night's dew. Mowgli stood on a small hill overlooking the vast expanse of his home, the jungle that had both nurtured and tested him. The events of the past days lingered in his mind. The awe and fear he had felt upon seeing fire, the destruction it had wrought, and the wisdom Bagheera had shared. The boy's heart was heavy, but not with fear. It was filled with a growing sense of responsibility. He had seen the power of the jungle, its beauty, its strength, and its fragility. The red flower, with all its might, had shown him how easily balance could be disrupted, how quickly life could be turned to ash. Yet the jungle itself had shown him resilience, the ability to heal and grow again if given the chance. Mowgli crouched by a patch of soft earth at the edge of the hill. His fingers dug lightly into the soil, feeling its coolness. This was the jungle's foundation, the source of its life. The earth, the trees, the water, the air, they all worked together in harmony. And now, he understood that his role was not to dominate this harmony, but to honor it. He thought of Bagheera's words. Strength is not in your ability to dominate, but in your ability to coexist. Those words echoed in his mind as he looked out over the jungle. The sunlight danced on the treetops, creating a patchwork of shadows and light. The jungle was alive, pulsing with energy, and Mowgli felt a part of it in a way he never had before. "I owe you respect," he whispered softly to the jungle, his voice carried away by the gentle morning breeze. "You've given me a home, a family, and a purpose. I won't harm you." His fingers tightened around a small clump of earth as he continued, his voice barely audible. "I'll respect your power, your fire, your storms, your silence. I'll live by your rules and protect you, just as you've protected me." Mowgli stood, brushing the dirt from his hands. The weight in his chest had eased, replaced by a quiet resolve. He felt older somehow, more aware of the world around him and his place within it. The boy who had once seen the jungle as a wild, unpredictable place now saw it as a delicate balance, a balance he was determined to preserve. Behind him, Bagheera emerged from the shadows, his golden eyes watchful. The panther had been observing Mowgli silently, sensing the boy's transformation. "You've made a decision, haven't you, man cub?" he asked, his voice low and calm. Mowgli turned to face his mentor, a small but firm smile on his lips. "Yes, Bagheera," he said. "I understand now. The jungle isn't just a place to live. It's alive, and it deserves my respect. I won't take it for granted." Bagheera nodded, his gaze steady. "Good," he said simply. "The jungle has much to teach you, Mowgli, but the first lesson is always respect. Without it, no creature can truly belong here." The two stood in companionable silence for a while, the jungle's morning symphony filling the air around them. Birds called to one another from the treetops, and the soft rustle of leaves spoke of the breeze weaving through the forest. Mowgli felt as if the jungle itself had heard his vow, as if it acknowledged his newfound understanding. As the sun climbed higher, Mowgli turned to Bagheera with a determined expression. "I'll do my part," he said. "I'll learn from the jungle, protect it, and live by its rules. That's my promise." Bagheera's lips curled into a faint smile. "Then you are truly a part of the jungle now, man cub," he said. "And the jungle will take care of you, as it does all who respect it." Mowgli felt a deep sense of peace settle over him. He knew there would be challenges ahead, but he also knew he wasn't alone. The jungle was his home, his teacher, and his protector. And he was ready to honor it with every step he took. As they began to make their way back down the hill, Mowgli glanced over his shoulder one last time. The jungle stretched out before him, vast and infinite, a world of endless lessons and mysteries. With a final, silent oath in his heart, he turned his gaze forward, ready to embrace whatever came next. As you close your eyes, let the echoes of this story guide you to peace. Drift gently into sleep, knowing you are part of a world where love and wisdom shine bright. May your dreams be calm, comforting, and filled with wonder.